All right, guys. So the ISC we've all been waiting for. I just wanted to know where they're at with the cargo refactor. I just wanted to know. That's it. And here we are. Inside Star Citizen, the cargo show.
318, the future is bright for cargo.
We're moving away from the simplistic implementation that we had before into something that's more of a real simulation.
With the new physicalized cargo, it opens doors for us to give some new gameplay.
Okay, a more of a real simulation.
Cargo today is pretty basic. You go to a kiosk, you use an interface, you load your ship, it automatically loads. Get in that ship, you drive that ship to a port, and then you sell what you bought. But there's not a lot of interesting choices there.
With the current implement,
Not only are there not a lot of interesting choices, but the risk and the reward aren't worth losing the cargo. And I don't know. I've lost cargo from 30Ks that haven't come back. Crashes more than 30Ks because getting back in the same server I've had trouble with.
whenever we designed it, we did not have the tractor beams that we have now. What that meant is that you were not able
The
to.
thing about this is these guys aren't the economy guys. So they're not the, or at least this guy isn't, right? So Chad, the Giga Chad is not the guy who decides the cost of cargo in one place or another.
To pick up and
that's been one of the big
larger
problems.
1SU boxes. At the time, all that you could do was pick up the smaller 1/8 SU boxes, but this gave us a problem for piracy and looting in general, in that the really valuable things are sold and bought in these 1SU boxes and higher volumes, but the only thing the player can actually pick up are the smaller ones. So what we had to do is a kind of hack in the cargo system such that when a vehicle explodes, instead of generating the larger 1SU boxes on destruction, it actually generates the smaller ones in this kind of gamey, magical way, so that the player can actually go pick up some of the boxes from the destruction.
The thing about this is, you know, at the bottom right here, it says existing live gameplay. This doesn't happen. When you blow up another person's ship that has cargo in it, it doesn't consistently, almost never drops these boxes in the first place.
All right, let me give you an example. The C2 has 696 SCU, which equates to 5,568 1/8 SCU boxes that you have to loot. But the ship exploding should damage some of those boxes, and we want to have about 40 to 50% survive that explosion, so that's still about 2,000 1/8 SCU boxes.
Okay.
But then there's server performance issues to consider. So what we've actually been doing is capping that at 10% boxes being generated. However, on top of that, it's an incredibly tedious experience, because now that's, if you were to do the math, about 400 boxes that you have to go pick up, and collecting all of those by hand without a tractor beam.
With the new system, we've gotten rid of the 1/8 SCU cargo containers. Everything is 1 SCU cargo containers. So in the case of the C2 with the 696 SCU, that would be 696 1 SCU boxes rather than 5,000 plus.
Every single one of those boxes is a real entity in the game, like any other entity in the game. It is tracked in the database as a persistent entity now that we have the new persistent entity streaming architecture. And it means that now...
I've never seen that experience of them just popping confetti and dropping on the ground, and just looking perfect like that. The other thing is, I saw it in chat and I agree. I think right now is the opportunity. Yeah, that's the new system. I mean, it looks exactly the same as the old system, but okay. I think that you have an opportunity right now to start changing the meta I guess, when it comes to piracy a little bit. Not changing it, but educating it and massaging it to the way that it probably should be, which is you're going to have players. I think you're going to have pirates mostly just blowing up cargo ships and scooping up what's left, where you should be rewarding pirates who disable and board ships. Now, I know they're not able to disable ships as easily right now, or at all for that matter. But I think if you explode a ship, it should be less than 40%.
Now that they're entities that are persistent, they can be interactable.
Incentivizing.
So now you can do things like use the tractor
sort
beams,
of the right
pull them out of the cargo
way
hold,
of
or
doing
put them into a cargo hold.
Right.
It also means that whenever we do ship destruction with the new system, we don't have to generate anything. Instead, all that we do is we take the entities that were already created and we just simply detach them from the cargo hold and let them float in space.
Therefore, the new system should always work, right, Chad?
Now, we still want to have some of that explosive destruction. So there's a certain amount of variable amount of that cargo that is destroyed on ship destruction.
Actually giving you back somewhere, it's actually 0 to 90%, but that's calculated every time your ship explodes. So what happens then is now we're actually hitting that 40 to 50% number on average.
This means that both
0 to 90%. That's weird. 100% of the time, 0% of the cargo shows up.
For players that want to reclaim the cargo that they lost on ship destruction, or for pirates that want to scoop up their ill-gotten gains, then
I guess that is the incentive right there, is you don't want to risk the 0% by blowing it up, right?
They'll have an easier time to get at it, and there'll be more value there when they try to do so.
There is also the new commodity kiosk flow, which is a step in the right direction for helping you.
All right, let's see if this is like further along than we saw on the monthly report. Maybe.
For helping you understand what you're buying and what you're selling and what's available at the places where you buy and sell commodities. It's new UI.
It's still not showing like alpha UEC numbers, so it's
the new building block UI, so it should be a lot easier to understand and gives you a graphical representation as you're buying and selling of how much space that you have on the ship that you're buying and selling into. 3.18 is not the end of the cargo refactor. There's lots of stuff that we're in the design process for right now.
Yeah, they also didn't listen to any of the feedback.
And unloading.
Yeah, agreed. About the just ship doing nothing in the center,
as well as automatic loading.
Good job,
and unloading. We're also looking at some big box cargo missions that separate the cargo from the hauling professions. So that's something to look forward to. We have a lot more content coming that use these new features. We hope you enjoy it in 3.18.
Or is that just the tier 0 version? Is that just the tier 0 version of the cargo refactor, which means it's going to stay there for fucking years and never do anything in the middle? Yeah, they did say the center was a placeholder, and they showed all the things that they wanted to do with the center. But then they also had all this additional time and didn't do anything with it.
And as a coda to all of that, Chris Roberts actually came by my desk the other day, and we talked about how it was unfortunate that we even have to allow players to lose 40 to 50% of the cargo. And we talked and decided that we would try to come up with an interim solution on our path to physicalized damage that would allow us to leave the husks of ships behind on vehicle destruction instead of just exploding them and erasing all the contents. This would allow players to explore the ships and find the cargo and physically move it off the husks of the ships, rather than just generating a percentage of the boxes on destruction.
Okay, so I'm confused. Does that mean that the cargo will not like pinata out anymore and you actually go into the husk of the ship and pull it out? Or because he's talking about generation. They already said that they don't have to generate the cargo. So that whole ending was super confusing. Yeah.
Like every other aspect of Star Citizen's continuing development, the cargo refactor isn't a one drop and it's done kind of feature. And the first implementation, much like persistent entity streaming alongside it in the upcoming Alpha 3.18, is about rebuilding existing functionality within an entirely new foundation that will now set the stage for the persistent universe to reach its fullest potential in subsequent patches to come. And while we're here talking about new technologies designed to be built upon from one patch to the next, let's chat us up some Rastar, the internal tool.
All right, I'm not interested in Rastar because, yeah, the internal tool. Who cares? I want to talk a little bit more about the cargo stuff. Yeah, I would imagine Spectrum has lit on fire. I don't read Spectrum. I don't get involved in that mess as much as maybe I should. This is what the game was always meant to be. So it's, we're going to interact with each other. We're going to have piracy. You're going to get attacked. All those things. There are so many pieces of the puzzle missing to make this work. It's insane. Right? No dynamic economy to, constantly be changing to and from and where and values and creating risk and reward. Because, hey, it might be a really risky path to go, but I just whacked the mic. But the reward is worth it, right? The reward is worth the try. The juice is worth the squeeze, or whatever. The big thing is also reputation, long-term reputation. A pirating should come with consequences. That isn't just go to, Security Post Korea, clear your crime stat, and you're free to go and do whatever you want again with no additional consequences, right? That's just two things of the many pieces to the puzzle to kind of balance the scenario between piracy and cargo haulers. And it's gone so far in the direction of cargo haulers for so many years, except for the fact that the economy of the game is absolutely horrible. Right? So economy of the game's horrible. Nobody runs cargo because it's not worth it. And, they're at least not nobody. People do it, but at a much lower rate than they used to do it when it was like the optimal thing to do. Now that there's bounties that you fire one missile at and they just die instantly is kind of the way to go these days, right? So there's quite a few things there that are missing. One of the other things that are missing, combat logging issues with cargo haulers versus pirates, right? All that stuff being resolved hopefully with 3.18. So quite a few kind of pieces that are missing to this, and I don't really feel bad, and I'm one of you out there for the cargo haulers because they've had it kind of really easy for really long. You just kind of can play the game like it was basically Elite Dangerous as far as cargo hauling went for way too long. So now it's time to be what might feel like Call of Duty for a little while, which is not necessarily a good thing, but I guess pirates will have some fun for a little while, and we'll have to see. Yeah, this is per Jake. Community manager Jake. He says, "Hey folks, as a follow-up to this episode of ISC, we're going to do an AMA with Dan and Chad on Tuesday, November 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So we're gonna, I think we'll follow that on stream and ask some questions that Tuesday. So be here for that on the live stream Tuesday on the 8th, because yeah, I think that there's a lot of questions that need to be resolved and asked and figured out. And yeah, I just don't think, your player who doesn't want to interact with pirates is going to have a very good time for a little bit here, but it is what it is. All right, let's get into Rastar now.
Tool that we've been developing now that's currently in use placing outposts throughout both the Stanton and Pyro systems.
The whole purpose of Rasta is to make the thing easier for the devs to place location at the surface of a planet. And in the end, it will be used as the system for player to build their bases.
Yeah, I mean, they're still going to sell this like this to us, although I don't expect this tool to be in our hands for a very long time. Okay? I don't buy it. It is, you know, marketing lead people saying, hey, make sure you say it's going to be for the players too. It's not just an internal tool. It's just an internal tool.
We have Rasta.
Until they're telling you that Rastar's coming in your hands next patch, you know, it doesn't, anything they say doesn't mean anything. So we can look at this, and we will look at this as a very cool internal tool, probably.
Because the previous system based on prefab was quite hard to use and not up to scale for the scale and the scope we want for our planet density. Any changes to the planetary generation, like for example, you just change a canyon, you add a canyon to the planet, you'll have to redrop every modules at the surface of a planet to be sure they are well aligned with the new terrain and the new modifications of the terrain.
This is always their
Rasta
problem,
makes that better,
right?
By allowing, first of all, the ability to directly follow the modification of terrain topology, so we don't have to refresh anything. Plus, it gives us more granularity and modularity of the locations. Backers should be caring about Rasta and all these improvements, because that's the way we will be able to give.
That's funny, because you know the question that was asked to him is, why should players care about this?
You, the players, the most dense area we can imagine to keep in line and have all the planets, all the moons filled with POI and things to do on the surface.
Yeah, and that's why we should care about it right now, is because this is how they create points of interest and things to do. Not, we shouldn't care about Rastar because we're going to be able to use it. We should care about Rastar right now because it's how they fill the world with content.
Maybe later in orbit of this planet and moons.
They might add more orbit stuff. Okay.
It changed not much in terms of visual, mostly UI rework, but features are all there.
Okay, Terry.
Just a lot of internal work to allow the new build location to fit more and be more productive. So now we can have modules and elements that are nested and indented, so we better understand what depends on what. And we also added the ability to collapse parts of the tool, so to have a better understanding and more focused work on some parts of the tool. We also worked on better tools integrations.
What dialect? I'm guessing he's from Spain, but learned English in England would be my guess.
So now we are able to use the base tools of the editor, such as gizmos or roller bar, to modify some elements of Rasta, which was not possible previously due to some breaking while doing so, and to keep consistency with the Rasta flow.
Because he's got like a proper English accent
now,
too.
Most of the in-edited tools are usable with Rasta without any risk. We also moved the object containers used for Rasta to streaming object containers to keep in line with the whole streaming process of the network system. So now we gave the ability for the server to load and spawn and despawn some locations and elements at will to avoid crowding the whole server memory. And we also now converted the whole connector system that was presented during the last CitizenCon to item ports. So now, again, to keep in line with the in-house way we do things and to better integrate some elements such as the resource network that will later be available on the locations.
Okay.
I'm quite happy with the result of Rasta. There is quite some work to do on it, but the result is promising, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna love
those
the
came
location
along.
we will roll out with Rasta.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the cargo factor will physicalize the manner in which we
What was that
transport
camera
goods in
angle?
such a way that makes retrieval after disaster or collection after
Wait, it's
piracy
probably Italian.
easier and more rewarding than ever before. That it's the new foundation for an entirely new trade experience that will continue to develop over subsequent patches. That it may yet have some fortunate side effects on vehicle destruction, ship husks, and salvage in the not too distant future. And that the Rastar tool, first introduced at last year's
In the not too distant future. So that is not a 318 thing, I guess?
CitizenCon, is already being used to populate the planets of Pyro in next year's 4.0 and Stanton in this December's upcoming Alpha 318. Now don't forget that this year's Intergalactic Aerospace Expo is right around the corner. You can go to the robertspaceindustrials.com website to find out all the details. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
All right. I mean, listen, it's about what I expected from the cargo refactor. Rastar, it was exactly what I expected. An internal tool that does literally, like, sharing that to us and all that information really has no bearing on anything for me personally. I'm glad that they're, not able to have to. I think the big thing is not having to have to constantly redo the landing locations or the points of interest on a planet when you change anything with the planet's geometry or whatever whatever you want to call it, game dev words, I don't know. But it just, they place it down in that area. It's always going to be in that area. That's it. And that's a good thing. Other than that, until we're base building ourselves, I'm not super interested. But the cargo refactor stuff does look interesting. I think the one thing that some people pointed out, and I noticed as well, is that nothing snapped to the cargo grid in that video. Although a dev in my Discord, when we were kind of talking about it, confirmed that it will snap. But I didn't follow up and ask, because I don't like asking when stuff, because I know they're not really allowed to answer it and I didn't want them to get in trouble. I don't know if the answer to that is in 318. Of course it will snap eventually. We heard that many, many moons ago. But will it snap in 318? I don't know the answer to that one. So I'll follow up, because the more I think about it, the more I should have. And maybe I'll post on Twitter or something. But, saying it'll snap eventually is like saying, we'll have server meshing next year. It doesn't matter until it actually happens. You could tell us what your plans are all you want, but I don't particularly care what the plans are. I care what the present is, and I care what you're actually doing that's going to change the way we play Star Citizen to the way that we all hope to play Star Citizen. That's all that matters to me. But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. As always, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and comment down below on anything related to this ISC. But also, I live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, and I have a Discord. And you can probably have the best place to have the conversation about these things would be on my Twitch channel or my Discord, discord.gg/SaltEMike. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.